Hey, you know how the first Castlevania has this old Hollywood presentation with the film reel frame for the intro screen and end credits for people like Christopher B. and Boris Karloff's? Well, there's an official explanation for that offered in a tie-in novel, The Devil Castle Dracula, The Battle of Old Castle. This was a light novel, meaning short, game book, meaning choose your own adventure, but with dice. As a result, there's not a lot of story content here. Most of the decisions you'll be making are whether to attack a skeleton with a whip or with holy water. It's like an actual Castlevania playthrough as a novel. But I'll tell you what happens is it takes place in 1950 and it stars an actor named Simon Belmont, a descendant of the original Simon Belmont. The Belmont clan has owned Dracula's castle ever since killing the Count off, and now they're filming a movie about the original Simon's battle with the forces of darkness in the original castle with the original props, costumes, and weapons. Well, wouldn't you know it, that brings Dracula back to life, and he kidnaps Simon's girlfriend, Lucy Lane, who had been cast as the original Simon's girlfriend, Mina. The credits listed at the end of Castlevania 1 are interpreted literally. The book envisions them as the actual cast and crew of a Castlevania movie. They all get killed when Dracula comes back to life, leaving only Simon and Lucy. I'm piecing this together based on a mangled Google translation, but there's not much to the book itself you won't get from the Castlevania Wikia entry on it. Like I says, the real bulk of the novel is skeleton fighting, which is, of course, just as much fun in a book as it is in a video game. And in the end, you kill Dracula, the castle collapses, and Simon and Lucy get on with their lives. The epilogue goes on to explain that the original Castlevania film is left unfinished, but Simon Belmont becomes a huge star after killing Dracula in real life. Sort of like Rick Dalton in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, getting a career boost for setting a hippie on fire. He stars in a follow-up, The Demon King Dracula, which becomes an all-time top earner and the first horror film to win an Oscar. Simon is honored with a bronze statue, but shortly after its unveiling, a pair of bite marks appear in the neck. And every time the artists patch these marks up, they appear again shortly thereafter. Plus, there's reports of Dracula sightings now and then, and female tourists seem to disappear like clockwork once every 6 months. The game book is official, but non-canon, and that works fine for me because the game series probably shouldn't be beholden to a novelization of an imaginary movie adapted from the first game based on some silly jokes in the end credits. In my big Dracula video where I reviewed 80 movies, I noted that the 1980s were a sparse decade for the Count. His biggest appearances in English language films were The Monster Squad and Waxwork, which are both more concerned with his presence as a pop culture figure. These are last action hero takes on the character, missing only the magic movie ticket. I got a hypothesis that nobody wanted to make a serious Dracula movie in the 1980s because Romania was a depressing word around that time. I'm no history buff, but I know that life under Nicolae Ceaușescu, nicknamed Draculescu, couldn't have been much fun. 1980s Hollywood leaned heavily into commercial, crowd-pleasing films with happy endings. And it would have been tough trying to pitch Universal on a Dracula story set in the dreary communist parts of Europe where you had to suck dick for a pair of Levi's. In Romania, American movies were banned, but spread through the black market thanks in large part to Irina Margareta Nistor, who is one of the great living champions of free speech.
One more thing that I'd like to tell you. It's that a film in need is a friend indeed. Thank you.
She would dub movies over. Every character had her voice, and they all sounded like this.
I guess we decided not to negotiate.
Am hotărât să nu mai negociem nimic.
She wouldn't swear in her dubs because part of the punishment for anti-communists in Romania was verbal abuse, and she didn't want to speak the language of her oppressors.
But what I wish to tell you very quickly is that I wasn't translating all these swearing words because we are not swearing in my house and because in the communist prisons they used swearing as a method of terrorizing the anti-communists.
There wasn't much market for pretentious dramas and art films in Romania. They liked the fun movies, Die Hard, Terminator, stuff like that. So if you made a realistic Dracula movie in the 80s, Romanians would probably be the last people in the world who want to watch that shit. When Nicolae and Elena Ceaușescu were arrested, tried, and executed in 1989, just a month or so after the fall of the Berlin Wall, this new sense of optimism about Europe's future is likely what laid the groundwork for the Francis Ford Coppola film. We could finally have fun with the Transylvanian boogeyman again and not feel like we were, diminishing the plight of real Romanians. Nested continuity, fiction in fiction, like the fake TV shows in Grand Theft Auto 5, there's a prophylactic quality there. If it's good, awesome. If it's bad, if it's not funny, or if it's politically misguided, that's not the real-life writer or director doing that. It's a character in a video game who made a bad movie. That was the trick they used for the Seinfeld reunion on Curb Your Enthusiasm. It felt good seeing the gang together again, but if it came off as pathetic, well, that was the joke.
Stop laughing, it's not funny.
So 80s Draculas, among whom Castlevania's might be the most iconic, were all contextualized as Dracula the movie character, not Vlad the Impaler, not a metaphorical stand-in for Ceaușescu, but a silver screen monster representing horror as a harmless escape, and not the very real horror of being sent to prison for drinking a Coke.
You're not supposed to bite people.
It's a Dracula game.